Matrix talk. Phil is busy Googling for
Some research.
information, researching. We're figuring that on the satisfaction side, right side of the matrix, we have dopamine. We're trying to figure out on the relief side, something frightens you, and that motivates you.
Yeah.
So what's the neurotransmitter? You know, we all love our dopamine fixes. I don't know. We're figuring that out. This is the conversations that Phil and I get into.
This is what we do.
Anyway, they're esoteric, like this webinar. So welcome all, and if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to you as well. And if you're here live with us and you want to say, "Oh, I would love to buy one of their products,"
Yeah.
over here on Crowdcast, all you got to do is go down and click the green button. If you're over on YouTube, then you need to go into the description and you'll see where it says the ACT Matrix Academy. There's a link to it. And right at the top of that page, there's the same offer that you see in the green button. So that's one bit of housekeeping to take care of. The other is in the upper right, if you're watching this on Crowdcast, you can follow us over in the upper right. And if you're on YouTube, you can like us. Hey, I guess it's a like, right? Thumbs up, yeah.
Yeah.
And you could even follow us if you
Do all three.
And if you're live, now this is only on Crowdcast Live. You can chat with us. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a chat button. I have just put in greetings from Maine. So that's where you can chat in if you're live and have a question. We long ago learned that most people just wait to watch the video, which is the way of the world now. So that's okay. And today we're going to talk about diagnosis and function, the philosophy of ACT. And we have 32 people who have signed up. And others in I guess first of all, this is something I said before. Did you find out what neurotransmitters over there?
I'm down a rabbit hole of looking at a lot of words.
We're just going to have a neuroscientist.
Hard to multitask here.
We'll have a neuroscientist come on.
We'll get to that.
Explain it to us. So a little bit, just so you know, if you're starting off, you say, what the philosophy of ACT? Why? Well, ACT was Steve Hayes and company were very careful when they created this thing that became known as acceptance and commitment training and therapy, ACT, that it was based on solid philosophical foundations. I'm an old CBTer myself. Phil was too. Well, before that, I was psychodynamic.
Oh yeah, definitely trained psychodynamic.
Family systems and this and that and the other.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephanie Ward. Hello from Colorado. Great. Well,
hey.
Really, if you really dig in and read, nobody really explicitly based it on a philosophical foundation. That is a point of view. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't have a point of view. It's like CBT or psychodynamic or whatever. They had points of view. They just didn't talk about it. Well, Steve Hayes and company talked about it, literally wrote it up and made sure that it was philosophically coherent with a particular point of view. And that's why sometimes when you talk with folks about ACT, it seems as if you're talking a different language. There's a disconnect. And what really this is about is that disconnect. This Crowdcast webinar, whatever you want to call it, is about. And it's diagnosis and function. So for the CBTs and really everything, most everything else, it's about diagnosis. That's the biggie. And if you go into a medical record or well, they're called medical records, but they're still progress notes, that kind of stuff that you look at. And really, even the coaching folks get into it. It's sort of like, well, what's wrong with this person? You know, and that point of view, which is diagnosis, by the way, that's in the title. That's the diagnosis. What's wrong with this person? What's wrong with you? Oh, I got ails, you know. I got aches and pains. I got problems. And this and that. And let me talk to you about my problem. And oh, gee, we better prescribe something to you that fixes your problem. Right? Makes sense. And you know, really, where all of this came from, which was basically two different things. One, somebody that was a medical professional in the late 1800s or something, they could set a broken leg, right? They could do some basic stuff to fix you. And then along in the earlier 20th century, we come along and we get penicillin. Literally, that's how all this game started, folks. Penicillin. So you get sick with like pneumonia, and I give you penicillin. Voila, you're fixed. And to this day, I know there's resistant drugs and stuff, but it's still the cheapest way to keep somebody from dying. Because somebody gets pneumonia, they're probably going to die, and for like 50 cents worth of penicillin, they can live. Good deal, huh? But nevertheless, I've handed them that pill. I handed them the fix. So it's very important to get the diagnosis right so you get the fix right. That's not ACT.
Nope.
That's the problem. That's not ACT. That's not what it's based on at all. And by the way, when you go to philosophy, really, it's what the fix-it mentality, and use those words, fix-it, are really mechanistic. So philosophy is a way of looking at things, right? He has an undergraduate degree.
They told me when I was in undergraduate school. Yeah,
right. It's not the right way of viewing the world. It's a way.
A way. And there were many ways to look at the world.
There are many ways to look at the world and many ways to look at humans, right? And then, of course, in this case, we're looking at humans. And one way to look at them is as if they're a machine, right? A simile, right? As a machine. And boy, if you're setting legs and taking out appendices and handing over penicillin, right?
Yep.
Extraordinarily useful way of looking.
You were in demand with that stuff.
Brain surgeon, heart surgeons, stuff like that. Very mechanistic and not a problem at all. Oh, but then we get over to something like depression or anxiety or just sadness.
Yep. Galloping bumps.
I remember what was it? It was the happy pill or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Way back when, back in the 80s, they were talking. And of course, it was going to fix everything, right?
Oh, Prozac was the magic pill.
Oh, that was it, Prozac. It was Prozac.
Magic pill.
Oh, my God. It was going to put all psychiatrists.
Drinking water.
We were all going to be out of business.
Yeah.
Prozac was this.
Book, Listening to Prozac. That was the book.
Yeah. And it's a strange thing happened, folks. There's more mental illness of that type now than there ever was before. Prozac was not it wasn't the penicillin fix.
No.
Which I can't stress enough. That's where it started, was penicillin. That's where it started. So this idea of giving somebody a pill and it fixing something. And so diagnosis, pneumonia, pill, fix. Ain't got nothing to do with function. The function is the function of your behaviors, how your behaviors are working. Okay? And that's a different way of looking at a human being. Like, well, what about my depression? We're not paying attention to that right now. Instead, we're paying attention to your behaviors
What you're
and
doing.
how your behaviors are working or not working to get you where you want to go in life. Are your behaviors working for you? And in order to answer that question, are they working for you? You got to have sort of an idea of which way you're headed. So, and there you get, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a fireman. The old stuff that you say when you're in kindergarten or first grade or whatever. That kind of stuff. Well, you could stop right there and start asking the kid every couple of weeks, are your behaviors propelling you toward becoming a fireman? Now, of course, the kid would look at you like you had two heads, but that would be funny. But really, that would be the question, because they said they want to be a fireman. There you go. It's sort of artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence picked up on that, it's going to keep asking you,
Oh yeah.
how's that fireman thing going? It's never going to let go of it. And so that's what this is. And so ACT became, and the ACT, ACT, that comes from action. It's talking about behaviors. It's not talking about diagnoses.
Nope.
So that's what the philosophy of ACT is looking at the workability of either an individual human's behavior or a group of two or more people behaviors. Works both ways, and you look at how they're functioning. How's it working? And that's the question. And so I'm going to be honest with you, folks. It doesn't care about your diagnosis.
Nope.
Philosophical standpoint of ACT is just not there. Now they had to, in order to sell any books, the first, commercially viable book about ACT was, of course, ACT for Depression. Instantly violated its philosophical stance. Why? Because the publishers wanted to sell books. And so in order to function, to make money, to keep the publisher in business, they did the pragmatic thing of titling the book ACT for Depression. And it worked. It sold. The publishers that. So that in and of itself is functional, but ACT doesn't care that you're depressed.
No.
It doesn't care if you're anxious. It doesn't care if you have schizophrenia. That's the philosophical viewpoint, is we're going to, and it's an analysis of behavior. It comes out of behavioral analysis, but it's not. It's not at all. If you go read a behavioral analysis book, you're going to think, this isn't ACT. And you're right, it's not. It's not. But in a way, it is a way of analyzing your own behavior.
Yeah.
Meaning, but it's that simple, folks. It's asking this question: are your behaviors the sum total? You wake up in the morning, you run around and do stuff all day, you go to bed at night. All of those behaviors, that they work to get you, inch you along toward where you want to go in life. That's if you ask yourself that question, you're doing ACT.
Yep.
You're smack down the middle of the road of acceptance and commitment. So the acceptance part is you just accept you got diagnosis. Fine.
Beautiful. Got a diagnosis.
Even pneumonia. I'll go back to that. Okay, you got pneumonia. Well, first of all, I went to the doctor and got penicillin, but that's a behavior. Well, what else you doing? Well, now with my newfound feeling a bit better, I'm, playing with my children or whatever. talking with my wife. I'm going to the store. I'm behaving in ways that work. Now, to go in and get penicillin, it's on the left-hand side of the
Oh, most
matrix.
definitely.
You draw the matrix, it's on the left-hand side, but that's workable.
Oh, yeah.
Getting penicillin to stay alive is extraordinarily workable for. So once again, and people will say, oh, the left side of the matrix is about moving away from your values. No.
Mm.
It's about dealing with pain, dealing with pneumonia, dealing with whatever.
I'm going to take that penicillin so I can go over there and hang out with my family and keep going.
So I can stay alive and hang out with my family. That's it. It works. So a good way of thinking about the ACT model is it's really based on the workability model or workable behavior model, very behavioral. And so what we did with the matrix was we just took that philosophical point of view and made it into 4 quadrants. Okay, that's it. And we just took it. There it is. And we said, okay, so here's how you do it. You say who's important to you, and you write down it, like my wife or whatever down there in the lower right. And then well, how about what? What's important to you? Oh, getting an education. Oh, great. Okay. You write that down in the right. Okay, great. And then we went ahead and to quickly give our tip of the hat to the diagnoses to stick with this today. So what shows up inside of you? Oh, my depression. My depression shows up, and that's yucky. Because we'll ask, what's the yucky stuff? Anxiety, fear, self-doubt, all of this yucky stuff that Phil and I call it, that goes, and it's the diagnoses. Phil, sometimes he might even do it today. It's diagnosed. There it is, diagnoses. It's what ails you. And by definition, they don't feel good.
Nope.
They don't feel good. And so then now you're motivated. This is behaviorism. You're motivated to get relief. You want relief from the pain. You want relief from the anxiety. You want relief from the depression. Nothing wrong with that. Me too. And so then in the upper left, there's behaviors that you do to get relief. This is it. So even for a diagnosis, we'll use pneumonia. I go to the doctor and I get penicillin or some kind of antibiotic. That's a behavior. Going to the doctor and getting meds. And especially, boy, you start breathing better and stuff from penicillin. I mean, from pneumonia. You're like, hey, this is good. And I don't even feel like I'm going to die anymore. And that's a whole lot of relief.
Oh, yeah. Being able to take a breath feels a whole lot different than not being able to take a breath.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. But all of it's over there. But then you see that circle on the outside? That's the workability circle. And so you're saying, well, is this behavior of going to get penicillin for my pneumonia workable for the life I want to live? You don't actually have to answer that question. It's a nonverbal question. Most people would go ahead and say yes. Verbally, because it does, it works.
I see that person who's taken the penicillin and their breathing is getting better.
So it's a workable thing, so it's great. And then in the upper right, we ask, well, what kind of behaviors do you do for who and what's important to you? So, well, I, go have a chat with my significant other, wife, husband, whatever. There you go. Now, right after that, you can go ahead and say, well, does that work to get you where you want to go in life? Wait. And now I keep stressing you don't have to answer these questions. It's the question that's important. It's not you answering it. Life will show you whether it works or not. However, pragmatically, most people, if you say, just talking to your significant other work. Well, yeah, most of the time it does. It works for the life that you want, so it's that kind of thing. Education's important to me. I will show up to class. That's, by the way, if you ever go to university, college, that's rule one.
Yeah.
Show up to class. Go, what the posters will say, go to class. But that's a behavior, right? And one reason why it's so important, it is that it's a behavior. You've gotten up, brushed your teeth, done your stuff, whatever, got your butt over to class. Moving. And so it's that. And then, but you can always ask, does it work? So ACT is nothing but looking at behaviors and then saying, well, no, it's actually first, where do I want to go in life?
Yep.
Okay, I got an idea of where I want to go in life. Okay, and you're behaving. By definition, you're alive, you're behaving. Okay, are those behaviors working to get you where you want to go? And if you want to divvy them up a little bit so they're a little easier to look at, you say the relief behaviors, there's those. We all do them every day. And are they working? Some do, some don't. Upper right. Toward who and what's important to you kind of stuff. Some work, some don't. Not all of mine work. Maybe if all of Phil's approach moves work.
Oh, many fall by the wayside, Kevin.
But they don't all work, and then you just non-verbally keep the ones that work and do it. Now, notice I snuck something in there on you folks, which is non-verbally. You actually don't verbalize the workability analysis. You don't. Well, I keep saying you don't have to answer that question because ACT is based on behaviors, and you learn. Well, let's put it this way. You learn not to put your hand on a hot stove by putting your hand on a hot stove. You go, ow! And as Mark Twain says, now the cat won't sit on the hot stove, nor will it sit on a coal stove. Ixnay on the stove, right? But it's learned. You learn by behavior. You don't learn by talking. And all that just kills humans, especially 50-minute psychotherapy hour, because
it blows back brains.
Now, I'm not saying that it can't make you feel better to talk to somebody. Of course it can.
Get relief.
Yep. But you're not going to learn behaviors, workability behaviors for your life there.
No.
You may feel better, and I'm sure you will. I mean, therapists are nice, and you'll feel connected and all that good stuff. But that's all well and good, great. But that's not an analysis of a nonverbal analysis of are my behaviors working to get me where I want to go in life, and that's done. And so what we add to the matrix, we haven't added it yet, is the noticing. And by the way, that's all across all of ACT. That's where the mindfulness comes in. Well, the mindfulness, that gets lost a lot of times in its usefulness. The usefulness of mindfulness is that you're paying attention, noticing your behaviors in the moment. You're noticing your behaviors
in the moment.
And ultimately, you're noticing just automatically. You don't have to verbalize it. You're noticing, are they working to get you where you want to go? Now, with that said, you need to have a nonverbal understanding of where you want to go in life. That is, you got to have maybe talked about it enough that it's become nonverbal. You just got this inside yourself noticing view of where you want to go in life. And then it becomes easier to notice your behaviors and notice if they're working. And they're not all going to work, which is not. Nobody. If all of your behaviors work, then we all want to follow you on the stock market.
Oh my gosh.
They're
I'm
going
sorry for whatever you got there.
to winners every time, So that is not the way that's not the way things work. So that's all of ACT is. So it's not diagnosis. It says diagnosis and function. So it's diagnosis, and I carefully worded that. I'm the one that wrote the title to this one. And and Phil knew it when I wrote it, that diagnosis and function. It's the and. So, okay, you're depressed. What have you been noticing, for your behaviors with your significant other? Okay, you're anxious. There you go. And you've been noticing your behaviors and how are they working to get you where you want to go in life? Oh, I'm in pain. And you're behaving, and how are those behaviors working to get you where you want to go in life? Notice we don't say I'm in pain, and how are your efforts to get out of pain working? That's the mechanistic model. This is I have pain, and I'm noticing my behaviors and how they work to get me where I want to go. That's the acceptance part. It's not easy.
Nope.
But I don't mean to say that that's easy, especially in this world that really focuses on the diagnoses. What's wrong with you? The whole medical model is based on, they come in, you come into the office, you jump up on the little table with the white paper, and they basically say, what's wrong with you?
Tell me what's wrong. What's happening?
That's the whole medical model. And then quick, I'll write a prescription in the hopes that it'll fix you.
Oh, I want a prescription. If I go out now, I'm feeling gypped.
And we know that people hate not coming out with a prescription.
Yeah.
As a rule. I mean, some people might not, but most people want a prescription.
You're feeling poorly, yes.
They want something. And of course, that's led to antibiotic resistant drugs as physicians prescribed antibiotics unnecessarily. The person didn't have an infection. By antibiotics fix infections. They didn't have an infection, but it became an easy way to give people a prescription because they wanted the prescription. And that actually led to a lot of problems. But that's that medical model. But once again, if I got an appendicitis, take her out.
Oh, yeah.
Give me friggin' penicillin. It works. This is looking at workability. But over here in ACT world, when people come in for talk therapy, the talk ends up being about, okay, we're going to set things up so that one, you got a pretty good, that's all anybody's ever going to get, pretty good idea of where you want to go in life. I'm old enough to know there's crooks in the road that you don't see coming.
Unforeseen circumstances. New stuff, they still about you. New stuff comes to life.
So, but still, nevertheless, generally, even with a crook in the road, if maybe one of your values, if you want to use ACT terms, is I want to be a nice person. Well, that's pretty universal. No matter which crook in the road you hit, you can still behave to be a nice person.
You certainly can.
So there you go. So all kinds of stuff like that. But that's what ACT is looking at. So you'll spend the 50-minute hour, and at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. Now, a lot of people say, oh, we'll work on diffusion. Because if you're fused up with some language thing, then if you get less fused with it, then you're more able to behave. Actually, they don't say it that way. Just a way of fixing something. Yep. You have a fusion problem, let's work on fixing it. That's how ACT gets
here's the fix.
Twisted. Right. It gets twisted into a fix-it model. It's the same with values. Oh my God, Bill, you seem to be lacking values.
Now that you mention it, Kevin, I am missing a few values.
Oh my goodness. Well, we can fix that.
Oh, great.
Here, fill out this.
Better already.
And we're laughing, but it just happens, folks. It happens because we're in such a so darned of a mechanistic world that even something like values can end up getting bastardized into this fix-it thing. So you get values checklists, and this and, this and that and the other. And it's just really easy to slip over into fix it. And especially when on diffusion, if you don't know, you'll have something that, a word that really hitches you up. I mean, maybe you were sexually traumatized so if somebody, says the word, I don't know, aardvark, and it reminds you of that. So, oh my God. So you got to get diffused from the word aardvark. Then basically, exposure 101 comes in. We're going to say aardvark a lot.
Yeah. With Mickey Mouse voice, whatever. Right?
All that stuff. All that stuff comes into this. But notice how easy it is to slip into. We're going to fix your fusion. Right?
Yeah.
So the diffusion is to fix the fusion, and that'll be all well and good, but you will have not done ACT.
No.
In any way, shape, or form. That's not the philosophy. That's actually the theory of language and cognition, which is called relational frame theory. That's where the diffusion comes from. But then you could ask, well, are my behaviors working to lessen the diffusion? That is ACT. But just doing stuff to, in quotes, get rid of the fusion, that's not ACT. That's once again, you've slipped into mechanism. It's awful easy to do. Phil and I do it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've been at this for getting on 2 decades. And we'll slip into it. So we're forgiving, though. The ACT is non-judgmental. Yeah. The matrix is non-judgmental. ACT is non-judgmental. The matrix is non-judgmental. We don't judge.
Nope.
Just notice our behavior is working. Get you where you want to go. So we don't say a behavior is bad. That's counterproductive, actually. What's productive? There's the behavior. Is it working? Get you where you want to go. So in that case, good, bad, in between, don't matter. That's and that's why people do enjoy something like the Matrix, because they come away and it's non-judgmental. Now, Phil and I have had this discussion this morning. It's also something that's easy not to do.
Yeah.
Looking at yourself with the Matrix. Anybody know? Maybe there's somebody live on with us. Why isn't it easy for some people to do it? To draw out who's important to me. There it is. There's my yucky stuff. There it is. There's the stuff that I do to get relief. There it is up there. There's the stuff that I do to approach. There it is up there. Oh, and I'm going to go about life noticing all of that stuff. And actually, if you do that, you're fine. The workability will take care of itself. And then you go, then they sort of forget. Maybe they don't forget. Maybe they just don't do it. Phil and I know this.
You've experienced this.
And what's that Michael Jackson song? Remind me again, Phil.
A Man in the Mirror.
Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're looking at. Except you're looking into a behavioral mirror. Looking at a behavioral mirror now, at least a facsimile of a mirror. And yeah, that can be a scary proposition.
Yep.
Why? Because if you're honest with yourself, which Michael Jackson was singing about, behavior change is afoot.
That's it. Right? Change is afoot.
Right. And that's called change. And then we take on another wonderful saying. There's only one kind of person who likes change, and that's a wet baby. Yeah, not,
That's right.
that's behavior change business. You
Uh,
say, "Gee, oh, I need to lose a few pounds.
uh,
Easy.
uh,
I'll change my behaviors and eat less. Easy peasy.
uh,
I'll exercise more. Easy peasy."
no problem.
And that's the low hanging fruit of stuff to change, So no, so it can be rather glaring, can be rather, I call it brutal. So
Yeah.
and
But
where's the brutality comes from? From the friggin' philosophy. It's that functional. It's called functional contextualism is the fancy name. We just call it workability. But looking at yourself, looking at the matrix there, and saying, "Well, are my behaviors getting where I want to go?" Yikes! Maybe they're not, and you know it. I mean, you're going to know it.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer it verbally.
nope.
It's a nonverbal response, and if they're not, that can be tough.
Hmm.
Bill and I are sympathetic to that. That can be tough.
Yeah.
It is. So what if you do use the matrix, do realize that what I call the brutality of it. It's not a mean brutality. It's just stark. Just it lays your behaviors right out there in front of you to see.
Yourself.
And then here comes that darned workability question. And it's notice that's the function, that's the behaviors, the function of the behaviors. It's really, really, really not caring a hoot about your diagnoses.
Nope.
No, it's really not.
That's
No
not
matter how many act books you see about act for depression, act for anxiety, act for PTSD, act for da 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 da, and the philosophical core of it,
Yeah.
it's based on functional contextualism, which is the behavioral analytic way of looking at a human. So that's what you're doing. So when you do act, you're switching over to a different point of view. And we've tried to emphasize, we're not saying it's the point of view, it's a point of view. It's a different way of looking. And there's other ways of looking. You can become, I was watching a little bit of that True Detectives, where McConaughey is a pessimist.
Oh, yeah. I
mean,
have to catch up with that one. That's serious.
Episode 1, just watch it. It is masterfully done, and he's playing a pessimist with issues. Let me put it, a chain smoking
Pessimist stuff.
But nevertheless, he describes it as a philosophy and a way of looking at life. Okay, and it is. Okay,
Yep.
If you want to take on the pessimistic view, you can. So there's many ways of looking, but the thing is that philosophies are sort of silly. Bill knows this. He got an undergraduate degree in them because they're just ways of looking at the world. Not that one of them's right or one of them's wrong.
It's not the big truth thing.
None of them have the big T. None of them.
I want to say they have the big T, but they don't. They haven't. They don't.
Once they do, then they've just gone away from
Yeah.
philosophy.
Now they're not philosophizing. Yeah. Right.
They're not philosophy. They've gone into really religion now.
Yeah.
Once they do that, so no, but it's just, and then it's like, and from that point of view, you could say, well, is this pessimism working to get me where I want to go to life? Okay, you could. Or if you want to say it more complete sentence, is this philosophical point of view called pessimism working to get me where I want to go in life? That's the act question. So now I've combined pessimism with functional contextualism.
Absolutely. Isn't it great? And then you got my Ito sensei who says to us, there are many paths up the mountain.
Yes, many, many, many. And it's always easier to tell somebody else what path to take.
Right. Oh, yeah, take that one.
Well, you know what? I can see where you're going wrong. Yeah. Great.
You're on the wrong path. Paul.
The thing is you're over there and I'm over here.
Exactly.
We just, and once again, it's that point of view thing.
We can
I can't
philosophize.
see it. Right. I can't see it from your point of view. By definition, I can't see it from your point of view. So it's fun. So just understand you're going into that. It's this line of thinking that is asking this question: are my behaviors working to get me where I want to go in life? By the way, that's where the values come in from ACT. They plugged it in as values. And then people mechanize that.
Oh, yes, they do.
And they do the diffusion, they mechanize that. For that matter, they mechanize the mindfulness of it as well. Like if you do mindfulness, miracles will occur. It'll fix everything.
It is the ultimate fix.
And it's really presented that way in a whole lot of books.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Mindfulness is a way of fixing things. Well, from an ACT point of view, the mindfulness is so you'll notice, non-verbally notice your behaviors and notice the workability of them. That's what mindfulness is for. There's actually a clear function to the mindfulness. But you don't have to practice mindfulness. You just need to notice what's going on. Now, you do need to notice what's going on now. That's the trick of it, too, because you'll tend to notice the past and you'll tend to notice your worries and frets over the future, and you'll forget to notice, is what you're doing now working? So that's the here and now focus of it. So there you go. So to recap, ACT, they don't care about diagnosis.
Nope.
That's not his thing. I know the books are big: ACT for depression, ACT for anxiety, ACT for PTSD, ACT for this. I understand that. That's fine. But it's the philosophical underpinnings now. You accept, there's the word accept, you accept the diagnosis, whatever you got, and the pains and this and that and the other with it. There you go, you got those. And here comes the line going to the upper right. And what are you doing? And really, and this is truth. It really comes down to, what are you doing for who and what's important to you? Why do we know this? Because we've got lots of studies, and if you've ever worked in a hospice thing or something, you go talk to the people that are dying on their last weeks of life, and they'll tell you it's all about relationships. It's about having your diagnosis and having your relationships. That's the biggie. Doesn't have to be a lot. Could be just one or two relationships, but that's it. But nobody says, damn it, I wish I had gone to work more.
Yeah. Or I wish that could have kept my house cleaner.
Yeah. Or I needed to mow my yard.
Yeah. Should have put that addition on the house.
None of that. None of that is important. I mean, there's a few exceptions, yeah, but now 90-something% of everybody you talk to, and I have worked on hospice units, it's about relationships. So here we go. In the end of this story, what do Phil and I do to wake up to the matrix, let's say? Get it front and center. Well, we have learned to ask ourselves this question, and we've repeated this to each other many, many times, so I can say this. We say, or we ask ourselves, who's important to me?
Yeah.
Boom. I'm on track.
It all shows up.
It all shows up. Now, you may have needed to practice running around the quadrant.
Yeah. For it to show up, you have to play with it a bit. Yeah.
Play with it a bit. But after you're playing with it a bit, if you just simply ask yourself the question, who's important to me? everything just falls into place. And we have thousands of people we've worked with. It's the same way.
Yeah, that's what they do. They come back and tell us.
If you wanted to put a sort of psycho hippie term on it, that's century.
Ooh, yes. Ooh. Ooh, I like the sound of that.
And it even's better if you have a crystal in each.
Yeah, you know, maybe incense.
And incense. I'm only kidding, folks. No,
No,
you don't need that.
We're just being silly.
But it is important to ask who's important to me, or maybe what's important to me. I had the greatest time.
That'll get you there too. Yeah.
It's the middle of winter, and I look out, and the temperature had warmed up, and I'm a honeybee keeper, and my honeybees were out flying. Well, I just threw on my coat and shoes really quick and went out and stood in front of the hives and watched them. And Phil knows why too, because they're important to me.
That's right. He's with his important peoples.
they're important, you know. So it could be your dogs, your honeybees, whatever.
Yeah.
Important to you, and it's important to you. Them doing behaviors that work for who and what's important to you. That's it.
Mm.
That's it. And it doesn't, whether I'm depressed or anxious or in pain or whatever, that's
Coming along for the ride.
it's just literally, and you'll see it in the act metaphor cartoons. You just put it in your backpack. Depression and anxiety and pain and pneumonia and all this stuff just gets thrown into the backpack, and it's coming along with you as you behave for doing what's important to you, including taking penicillin to stay alive so I can take care of folks.
Keep on going.
Don't get it. It's all about the upper right. It's not. There's lots of upper left stuff that is very important for living, for valued living. If you want to put it that way. And people, probably one of the biggest misused parts of the matrix is when people start thinking that the upper left is anti-values or anti-who's important. Couldn't be further from the truth. No.
It all works.
It all works, and it's just relief moves, and we all get relief moves. You got to. You got a headache, take a Tylenol.
You got to sleep.
You get really tired, sleep. Get really hungry, eat.
Yeah.
These are all relief moves, folks, that are very, very, very functional for valued living, if you want to put it that way. But so that's the fellow. So the diagnosis. Here we can sum it up. Take the diagnosis and put it in your backpack.
Take it with you.
Now, function, and notice the function of your behaviors. Say, okay, am I getting relief with this behavior, or am I getting satisfaction with this behavior? And you'll notice that. And then finally, you're noticing either one, are they working to get me where I want to go in life? And just keep on trucking.
Go about your business.
Go about your business. Keep going. And if you pick that up, you'll pick that back really well.
You'll be doing that.
Oh, really a very simple, elegant philosophy that had to be complicated to make it into a therapy.
Mm. Yes. Oh, Kathleen says, what about someone who says nobody? I like this.
Isn't it cool that you're noticing that nobody's important to you?
Notice and no
It's
one's
really cool to be able to notice that.
cool thing to notice.
That's what it sounds like, Kathleen. Because it is. It really is cool to notice that. And now you'll notice, Kathleen, that it's all about the noticing.
Mm.
The learning occurs with the noticing. So you just have with the noticing. So, see, the verbal thing is, oh, I've got you. Nobody's important to me. Gotcha. You didn't get me. You just noticed that nobody's important to you.
That's
I
right.
think that's awesome.
That's right. Right.
And that's, by the way, there's another, that's called spitting in people's soup. They'll say nobody's important to you because they're trying to stump you.
It's very, very popular with teenagers.
Now, teenagers love to do that one. And some prisoners and stuff that I've worked with, they like that. Or drug addicts and stuff.
Yeah.
They like to do that. They think, and it's a one-up. It's usually a one-up.
Yeah.
Trying to get,
Yeah, they're
power.
trying to get over on you.
And you do, and this, by the way, this is other things we've done. It's called verbal aikido. So we've taken it and we've just gone, we've let it go sail right by our heads.
I see that.
Oh, wow. So you're noticing that nobody's important to you. That's a really cool thing to notice. And now the person is sitting there noticing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the point.
Voila.
The point was noticing.
Yeah.
It's nonverbals, Kathleen, by the way. It's the art of using words to get to nonverbals.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I've even heard Steve Hayes talk about this. It's this crazy world of using words to not use words.
To point people back at their own experience.
Yeah. Using words to point back to noticing. Yeah. And you'll oftentimes sound crazy. It's the sound of one hand clapping.
Yeah. But except that, people that, when we use this, we've used this, zillions of times, and the people that use it and then they'll work with us, at some point, they'll get philosophical too, and they'll say, Phil, it really is all about noticing.
I've heard that so many times.
Another philosopher is born.
It takes a while before that shows up, and then it's like,
it's not. Yeah, it's right.
It's all about the noticing. Yeah, it is. That's it. It's all about the notice. And notice, once you say notice a lot, you say notice a lot. But note that they're not saying it's about depression. It's not about anxiety, and it's not about my alcoholism. Not about any of that. It's about noticing. If you really exquisitely, when you get up to a point, it's almost exquisite noticing. It means you're noticing in fine detail. Yeah, it's cool. And then to a person, people will say it's cool, interesting. And that's another thing people end up saying, this is interesting. Isn't that cool? They don't say it's happy. They don't say it's sad. They don't say it's better. They don't say it's worse. They just say,
interesting.
It's interesting. And I have come to know that having an interesting life is sort of cool. Being interested in your own life is cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's just cool to be interested in it. And it's not like I have a good life or a bad life or anything. I'm just interested in it. I'm interested in how it's unfolding, how it's matriculating along.
Yeah,
I love that word. We love the word matriculating.
Matriculating along in your life.
And that's what it's about. So we got on a diatribe. But yeah, we've had that before. People say nobody's important to me. And did you think teenagers? Phil used to work with teenagers.
That's great. Yeah.
They always nobody's important to me. Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know.
You're noticing, and the way you add the act on is so you're noticing that nobody's important to you.
Yeah.
Now, when you give somebody credit for noticing, I've never had them not take it.
No.
I'm going, yeah.
I like getting credit.
Yeah, I am noticing that nobody's important to me. Yeah. And then they'll get that far away look in their eyes.
Oh yeah.
And it's the noticing. It's back to it. You're the dependent. If you wanted to get a dependent variable in somebody doing acceptance and commitment, training and/or therapy, the dependent variable is the number of times that you use the word noticing.
Yeah.
So if somebody did an hour-long session, let's say, and they only used the word noticing once, that's not very high noticing dosing.
Nope.
to,
That's
to
not
use,
high dose effect, as they say.
uh,
Right?
to use the dose effect. But if I use it 1,000 times, that's high dose.
Dose effect.
That's high dosing of noticing. We would use it in the hundreds.
Yeah.
We would note. We actually chicken scratch these down. It turns out to be in the hundreds, a few hundred times in an hour that we would use the word noticing. And when you say notice, people notice. Can't lay off of it. Even if you say, no, I don't want to notice, but you're noticing. You can't not notice when somebody says notice. So it's the dosing is noticing. If you really wanted to get into sort of a technical look at either training or psychotherapy with ACT, if you really want to be effective at it, learn how to point to noticing a lot.
Yeah.
And you get deft at it, just like with the nobody's important to me. Oh, cool, you're noticing that nobody's important. Slipped in another noticing. And a minute and a half later, here comes another one.
Yeah.
Lots of noticing. And then it's a truism though in this business. It's all about the noticing.
At the end of the day.
Our dad, hundreds, thousands of times. It's all about the noticing. Boy, getting from not noticing to noticing, that's the trip.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's not easy. I'm not trying to say it's easy. It's a process. It's a learning process to get that because you're not taught that. I mean, we could teach our kids that from an early age, but we don't. And believe me, getting your cell phone out and staring, that's not noticing.
No.
And you're certainly not noticing the people around you. And it's really important in this world to be seen and know that people see you and sort of respect you and stuff.
Relate.
And so I'm walking by somebody and they're doing this. How seen do I feel? I don't, because I'm not. And it's probably a big ill in our society. And there I'm talking about noticing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it goes down to, I don't know why this example came up, but I used to be a manager, folks. Chief. And one of the women that worked for me, and I was raised by women. My father died when I was young, and my sisters and mother. So I'm sort of used to fashion and hairs and stuff like that. That's where this comes from. And so she comes in, I went, oh, wow, nice hairdo, because she got a new one. She said, damn, my husband didn't notice. Gore.
Oh yeah. Well, people notice when you don't notice, right?
So how many times, and I'm sure it's happened to Phil, your wife comes back in and you fail to notice that they've gotten a haircut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And pretty soon you hear that you have not noticed.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't seen.
Yeah.
And it's awful easy to do. But cell phones and stuff have made it so much.
No, we all want to be seen. We all want to be seen in life.
I'm getting more, this to have a little fun, I'm getting older now. And, the older you get in our society, in the Western world, the more you disappear.
Yeah. And now, like you said, we disappear into these things.
Yeah, so we got double disappearing. Where, we're to go to a culture that reveres the elderly.
Yeah.
And I have the opportunity to do that. It's like, wow, folks are really paying attention to me. This is pretty cool. But here in the United States, in Maine, older I get, the more I disappear. Doesn't feel good, folks. I'm not trying. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. Something we probably ought to work on. Well, we do it by noticing it. We would just notice each other
Yeah.
instead of noticing our cell phones or electronics or whatever. But back to the philosophy, it's quite simple. But take your diagnosis with you. Notice the function of your behaviors and notice if they're working to get you where you want to go in life.
Yep, that's it.
I just said act. Quick, write that down. That's all of that. There's no more to it. And there's lots of noticing. There we go. I hope you all had fun.
Yes.
And anybody watching, and hopefully you'll click on and buy one of our products, because that's how we keep buying these T-shirts.
Yes.
We don't make a lot of money at this.
Yeah, they're not handing them to us.
But we do have a lot of fun. And we hopefully, I think in the end, I hope that people notice more.
Yes. Please.
That would be cool.
Get some noticing going out there.
Yes. Speaking of electronics, watch is fussing at me.
Oh, no.
But you know what? It's functional. I like the thing. I use it with the honeybees and stuff. So, whatever. That's a pretty good life. So we'll be back next Friday, probably.
Friday.
Yeah. And we'll figure out something to do between
Yeah,
now. It will probably having something to do with the Matrix.
That's probably the starting point. Yep.
Well, since we run the Act Matrix Academy, you got to figure. So we'll do it. You guys have a good time.
Yeah, have a good one. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye-bye. I forgot how to turn this off. There we go.
You too, everybody.